Uh, this is, I don't know how many times I've recorded this, but it shouldn't be me covering this. It shouldn't be. It should be Justin Wong. It should be JM Crofts, Kanage, uh, Dorgy, Maximilian Dude, any of the FGC, anyone but me. Why has no one covered this? Capcom vs. SNK 2 Pro is a ROM hack by Justin Gibbins. It's incredible. It is basically a balanced, definitive version of Capcom vs. SNK 2. What this does is it takes the changes made in EO, especially like, the S groove charging faster, the slight leniency on the parries with the P groove, as well as being able to cancel from specials into supers, Street Fighter 3 style, right? And but then there's another thing it does, and I'm just going to demonstrate that here. So for full discrepancy, my name's Coyoda. I do not play fighting games competitively anymore. That was like maybe 12 to 15 years ago. I still play casually, but without a fighting game partner, and just kind of fell off. Also fell off because of Beast Fury, and yeah, there's a lot. But basically, please do not expect perfect execution out of me. I'm just doing this because I want more people talking about Capcom vs. SNK 2 Pro. And I love watching my favorite FGC YouTubers and just anyone talk about, different fighting games and all that stuff. I like to watch from the side now. But yeah. So, as you know, for those of you who haven't played CVS2, you can roll, depending on which groove you're using. And that gives you some invincibility and, like King of Fighters. But you can't exactly act instantly out of it. So even if you do roll, the opponent might be able to guard depending, right? However, there's this thing called the roll cancel. The roll cancel is where within 3 frames of startup, you perform a special move within those 3 frames or a super move. And you can basically apply the invincibility of that roll to the special move and go through whatever stuff and hit the opponent at the same time. Yes, you get the point. All right, here we go. Oops. I forgot that my controller settings, I forgot to save. Oh my god, I hate myself sometimes. Okay, sorry about that. So as you saw there, I did the run, which is not invincible, for those of you who do not know the going-ons of Capcom vs. SNK 2. As you see, that is not invincible, but by doing what was a glitch in the PS2 and arcade version, I could do that. And I can basically, being that it's a more offensive maneuver. Oh, yeah, take a look up here. The green meter. Yes, this... So what's going on here? Wait a sec. So it applies the EO version stuff, but then it brings back the roll cancel. Well, it brings it back as a system mechanic. Yes, it is now a game mechanic that you can use universally. It's not just a glitch, and it costs 1/3 of your guard meter, meaning you're probably going to get 3 shots out of this, right? And otherwise, though, there are some other tidbits. And one of those tidbits, I have the notepad open here, is that when you roll cancel, invincibility will not be applied while the guard meter is flashing, but you can still get an extension. So essentially, it's a little bit balanced still. So you gotta be a little bit more aware of what you're doing, right? Let me just restart so I could have a full guard meter. But just to kind of show the basic application. Oh, okay, he's still going. Oops. Okay. I could do that. I could just go straight through whatever super move he's tossing at me, sock him in the face. Full invincibility. And, of course, if it's flashing... now, he doesn't necessarily mean... what was it? As in, like... Oh, when it's flashing, you can't do it. More that... I'll see if I could demonstrate this. It's a little bit tough with Maki because she doesn't have that issue, but essentially in some cases the invincibility will not, I think it's not as long. I could be wrong. Someone in the FGC might be able to understand it far better than my very rusty and no longer fighting game savvy brain could, process, right? But regardless, this is really cool. This is a very cool thing because now there's also not just that, it doesn't only just cost 1/3 of the meter. You might also notice something else. The fact that, let me stop Ryo Sakazaki there. So you might notice that you can actually see the roll before I do the, whoops. You can see some of that roll happen. Why is that? Well, the reason for that is because there is 3 more frames additional to execute it. So that means you have 6 frames now on startup to actually pull this off, and it's way more lenient as a result of that, which is wonderful, which makes it more accessible for even someone who's like, I guess kind of that mid limbo zone between casual and competitive, right? So someone like me can have an easy time just pulling it off maybe like 7 out of 10 times, right? Whoops, I'm being a little too fast there, but I could pull this off a lot more consistently, right? So usually I would get this rarely, right? On the other hand, there are other things that were changed too. In the notepad, you'll find that it'll mention if this change was EO, if he didn't change anything and kept it to what was in the PS2 or the arcade, or he'll even say home version, or there's also pro changes. So one of them, and the FGC, who is competitive, will especially know this. Player 2 has a certain advantage over player 1, and that is that they can take the corner from player 1. So if I were to toss you here and jump over, oh, that was a little too far. But if I were to jump over, I would get switched places with you, right? If I was player 2. However, that's been fixed. This was not fixed in any other version. It's only fixed in this ROM hack, so that's awesome. Here's another thing. So maybe some of you, now I didn't know about this until I was doing this today. The vacuum left corner is apparently what it's called on the Super Combo Wiki or something. So Justin Gibbins also fixed that. So if we, and the best way I can think of demonstrating this is essentially in the right corner, if you juggled an opponent, or if the, what was it? The left corner no longer sends opponents in a juggle state out of the corner. So basically what that means is, like, if I were to do this super and do that, the opponent on the left side would end up on the other side of my character. They would just fall onto the other side. And my assumption as to why that is, and no longer is the case with this ROM hack, is because maybe Capcom got a little bit lazy. They copy and pasted their code. I doubt it works that way, but I'm just making a funny little thing, right? But they got lazy. They copy pasted the same programming of that right corner to the left corner, which is why they fall out to the right side. But otherwise, it's wonderful that those two things are gone, because even I have noticed this when I was doing combos. I was like, what the hell's going on? I'm learning juggles. You know, I'm doing all these cool things when I was first starting on Capcom vs. SNK 2. I was like, why did they end up on the other side? So yeah, that's amazing. Even on the casual side of things, this is actually really good, especially for that little limbo zone, as I was talking about, people who, you know, they have an understanding of the competitive side, but they still play casually, like myself. You know, like that player to advantage is kind of screwy, huh? So anyway, what was kept to the PS2 version is the throw tech reversal glitch. Whoever is aware of this, I'm sure if you know, you know. Something to do with basically when two things can't happen, overlapping reversals or grappling catch colliding, where they're, you know, they would otherwise like soft lock on the arcade version, I believe. It just causes the characters to go neutral to prevent that. And then apparently the EO version cleaned this up well, but they just kept the PS2 version because it's good enough, not too problematic, I guess. And then meter gain after KO removed, but that's a home version thing, so that's only on arcade, I guess. Now there are a few other changes. So essentially one of them is to do with, well, one I can explain quickly. So for those of you who know about the K groove, in the EO version, the guard meter was kept as is. Nothing changed with it. So here, the P groove in the EO version was made 90% and swapped with the K groove, which now has an 80% guard crush meter. And the reason for this is because if you know with K groove, if you instead of the parry with P groove, you have just defense by pressing back, right? And when you do that just defense, you also recover back a little bit of HP, and due to the defense buff that also comes with being in rage mode when your meter is full, he felt that it's just fair that it would have like less guard crush meter, essentially. And yeah, I agree with that. Now P groove also has one other additional thing going on. It's not something new, but it's just a refinement, if anything. So the best way I can demonstrate this, I'm just gonna shoot out a Hadoken with Ryu, and you'll see what I mean. All right, so essentially, normally, parry timing would look maybe like that, right? You'd have to do it really close. However, you might have noticed, I moved extremely early there. And so this is the 2 additional frames on tap parry. This is a pro edition change. And essentially, EO was never intended to have more lenient parries. It just happened that way because of the way the game ran in calculated frames, according to Justin Gibbins. So it made the input more lenient. So basically, he just compensated for that here because people, I guess, liked that, right? So otherwise, you do get your your special cancel into your super. Whoops. Oh wait, what am I doing? Oh right, I'm not. Haven't really tried that with Power Wave, but essentially. Oh wait a freaking second. There we go. I should use the heavy version, but yeah, specials into supers. I feel like I already discussed this. Anyway, yeah, that's the main changes. If you already know the EO changes, S groove charges faster, and A groove you could cancel into custom combos from cancelable air attacks, not chain attacks in the air, not aerial raves. And chip damage was reduced in home version, so that's even the PS2 version. So nothing really new to discuss there. Now there is something else that's a little more interesting. I'm gonna go into A groove with Hibiki, because I'm sure some people who play Hibiki might be familiar with what's going on here. I'll do my best to demonstrate what is no longer demonstratable. Yes, some things are moved. I'm sure some of you might have already guessed what that is. And others who don't play Hibiki or don't know about this, or casual or mid-casual like myself, kind of in that limbo zone as I keep talking about. Yeah, Hibiki apparently, I didn't know this. No, wait, maybe I did when I was playing around. But regardless, if you did a kick throw, you were able to combo out of this or even activate your custom combo in A groove. But that is no longer the case because there's been 3 frames of recovery added and all this other stuff. So it's just not gonna happen. And I could definitely see how, and that's a pro change, by the way. So yeah, there's not really much more to say than that. Guile, his sonic booms now have 2 more extra frames of recovery. So I guess certain combos are going to be essentially ruined. Sorry, Guile players. Also, the damage has been reduced on them. They all do a base damage of 500, all of them. None are stronger than the other. There's a lot of characters that had a lot of changes here, some of which I'm a little bit confused on. I'll put those down in the comments, and you could, some of you can explain away what's going on, like with Eagle. Oh my gosh, I have no idea. Cammy has more recovery frames on her Cannon Spike and Spiral Arrow. Sagat has more recovery on his Standing Fierce Punch and Crouching Fierce Punch. 2 frames on the standing. Oh, startup. 2 frames of startup, and 1 frame of startup on the crouching, but 2 frames on the standing. Oh, Maki also had a. So what I just explained with Hibiki also applies to Maki's Fierce Punch throw. This was actually possible in the EO version. Yeah, so they did the same thing there. Kyosuke, I could kind of demonstrate this one. So, Kyosuke, his medium air punch normally will cause the opponent to float up a bit less to make it easier to do complete aerial raves. So, now you could have probably pulled this off on, but oops. And of course, it depends on how much of an aerial rave you do, right? But otherwise, oops. You know, you can pull off the 3-hit aerial raves far more easily now. And then basically all of his normals, almost all of his normals, have had like 1 or 2 frame additional like recovery. No, not additional, less. 1 or 2 frames less of recovery. So like his close medium punch has a little less recovery on it, which is nice. So a little safer. And then far medium punch as well. His far light kick, so that's a nice poking tool now. Far forward kick, whoops. Yeah, I could see how that would need that. And then as well as his close fierce, apparently shortened the recovery by 10 frames. 10 whole frames. That's 1/6 of a second. Or I mean, whoops, 1/6 of it. Well, you know, because of 60 frames. I'm probably recording this in 30 though. But yeah, basically Kyosuke's been improved. A lot of characters either got 5% increases or 5% decreases to their offense. I'll post those all down in the comments, and the more confusing ones I'm sure might be able to be explained by FGC. And then finally, if we look at the command list, well, there's never really been much of a problem with Kyosuke's moves, but anyone who's looked at Kyo Kusanagi, or who else? Or even Sagat. I forget who else. But anyone who's looked at the command list for Kyo Kusanagi could look at it and be like, something's definitely off, right? And essentially all that's been fixed, been updated. Many SNK characters had their moves made consistent with their typical conventions. So now instead of Shiki 100, it's Method 100 Demon Scorcher, Method 212 Rising Crescent Ballad, or even the Orochi Slayer, Hidden Method 108, right? So there's been a lot of text fixes, no censorship, because there was censoring on religious themes from God Rugal and Akuma, apparently, anything out of Western concepts, apparently. When quotes have been updated, fixed, etc. Rugal and Sagat had their names restored, their moves restored name-wise, and appropriately called their names. When you get a dramatic KO, the announcer now shouts "Finest KO!" as in the Japanese version. All endings and rival lines have updated readability and accuracy in some cases. So this is honestly a very definitive, balanced version of Capcom versus SNK 2. Even a little bit more accessible to casuals because of, like I said, that 6 frame input window now. That is big, honestly. Being able to pull this off, but then also it being resource dependent now makes it a little bit more balanced, a little less kusoge, I'm joking, but you know, a little less broken at the same time, makes it fair for everybody. Has the EO changes, and especially the good ones. I mean, well, you know, they were pretty good anyway, like a faster charging S-Groove for an S-Groove player like myself, like absolutely. I love playing S-Groove as like my little secondary thing just to have fun because it's a really cool groove, honestly. But the charge rate in the original PS2 sucked, right? Actually, while I'm finishing up, so as I was going on about, you know, that's the original charge rate of the other one, right? Let's do that one more time. Take it in. I'm sorry. I have to. Okay. Now let's show. Let me show you the other. Okay. So, oops. That's a lot faster. A lot faster and a lot nicer. So it goes up, like the startup of the charge, it doesn't have that little delay that you might have noticed. It just charges at a consistent rate, which means that as you're fighting, you know, maybe you knock down your opponent, get in a little charge, you're ready at like 30% there. Maybe, you know, you toss your opponent, boom. So, yeah, that's pretty good stuff. But regardless, this is a really cool, like, ROM hack. And I'm just surprised no one has covered this on YouTube. Like, I've seen a few comments or whatever beneath like the ROM hack, but I haven't seen anyone in the FG. Well, I'm not on social media much, which is also why, you know, I'm just like, what? I shouldn't be the one covering this, you know? This isn't. But I love Capcom versus SNK too, and I want to see the pros cover this. I want to see the big FGC, you know, players, you know, like the FGC reps. I want to see them cover this because I love watching their videos. And, you know, I guess they keep that passion there. Yes, I stopped playing fighting games very seriously, or I just don't play fighting games much at all these days anymore. Street Fighter 6 still brings me back, but, you know, I love Bloody Roar, obviously, and I'm covering SD Hiryunoken Densetsu, the Flying Dragon 64 sequel on my channel. But, you know, I guess maybe if it weren't for Maximilian Dude and Justin Wong and JM Crofts, Kanage, Thorgy's Arcade, especially Thorgy, you know, I don't think I would have really even returned at all to fighting. I just had this moment where I absolutely despise the ever-living crap out of them, but that was due to like personal reasons. A game called Beast's Fury that I regret to this day ever having had any part in it, with just, even if it wasn't like I had nothing to do with the actual development per se, you know. Oh, still, like, I only had so much of a say on there, but you know, it just everything, many things left a bad taste in my mouth. I guess I did have a little bit of a hatred for the esports, mainly because it felt like an excuse to just not really put a lot of content at all into fighting games, and Street Fighter V just really cemented that and just destroyed fighting games for me, honestly. But that's why I'm saying there should be others who are so passionate covering this, not me. And I'm passionate in my own different way. I love talking about mechanics and all sorts of video games. I love Devil May Cry, so, you know, I guess I'm still engaging with fighting games in a different way, right? But the pressure and the execution is just something I don't want to really worry too much about on my channel, unless it's God Hand or Devil May Cry and stuff, you know? It's just a little too much pressure, a little too much anxiety, and even if people might be a little less judgmental or more welcome to it and everything, I really don't care much to perform for others. I don't know. So don't feel pressured to follow me. I'm not going to be covering any more Capcom versus SNK 2. I am so sorry. Okay, maybe that's a lie. I can't say never. I love Capcom versus SNK 2 a little too much, but at the same time, it's not something I'm going to play competitively, and I'm not. This channel especially is not a fighting game channel. The previous one was, but like I said, it was too much pressure and I stopped. So, you know, please, like, I'm going to shout out to, I'm not a social media person, but I'm still going to shout out to, I'm for this game, for this mod by Justin Gibbins, I am going to shout out on social media to the FGC out there, and I want them to try this. I want them to play this. I want to see what they think, because I think they would have so much fun with that, and I enjoy watching others have fun with stuff, you know, with the things I like to play. So yeah, and I hope you guys, you know, give it a chance too. Anyone who sees this video, I hope you all give it a chance. All you need is X Delta or Delta Patcher. There's a new version of X Delta. It's called Delta Patcher. Just look up YouTube videos on how to patch, you know, games and stuff. You guys could figure out how to get the games if you have the disc. You could, you know, you could play on the PS2 emulator. You could put the disc in your disc drive, and you know, I'm sure you could figure out however to do certain things with patching. I'm sure there's others who know, but I'm not gonna, you know, say anything on my channel, unfortunately. But yeah, definitely don't ask me down in the comments how to do stuff. But reach out to these, reach out to them too, because they're definitely not gonna notice me. I am nobody on the internet, okay? I'm being dead honest. I am no one on the internet. So please help me reach out to Maximilian Dude, Justin Wong, JM Crofts, anyone you know in the FGC, Thorgy, you know, and let them know about this awesome ROM hack for CVS2, because I know they all love CVS2. I've seen them love on it. So get them on it. Let's watch them play it. let's see Maximilian have an absolute freak out about this. Anyway, see you all around. Thank you so much.